And you were listening to season 6 of the award-winning Christian Outdoors podcast with your host, Pete Rogers. All right, everyone, welcome back to Christian Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Pete Rogers, and today we have with me Mr. Ben Klusmann. I hope I said that right. Ben is a U.S. Army veteran. He has bow hunted for a little over 20 years, but after he got out of the military and was kind of getting home thinking about things, he decided to start a page called Dak Horizon. And for those of you who don't know, Dak is like a slang word for South Dakota. Dak Horizon, to try to spread the word of Jesus, his love for hunting and archery, and also to try to help other archers get into the sport. Ben Klusmann, thank you for joining me here.
Awesome. Great to see you. Great to have thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
All right, awesome. Why don't you start by telling the listeners a little bit more about yourself than what I did in the intro?
Yeah, so as you said, my name is Ben. Um, I've been bow hunting for about 20 years now. I did take a little break when I joined the Army. I got stationed out at Fort Hood, Texas for about 4 years, deployed one time to Africa. Came back, and just like you said, it was something that was kind of gnawing at my heart that I lost for a few years and decided to get back into it. So um, freshly married, freshly found out we were pregnant, and decided, hey, what better time to start a podcast or not a podcast, but a page than right now. So that's what I did. Me and a buddy decided to start Dak Horizon to kind of show the adventures you can have in South Dakota and all the fun stuff you can hunt here. And so he is actually fresh out of a heart transplant. I was fresh out of the military, so we decided let's start it up, and we did it together for about a year, maybe a little more than that, and then he decided he had to take a step back and kind of figure out what he was going to do with his life, and I decided to keep pushing forward with it. So been going now for about 7 years. I think we're going on 8 years right now, and yeah, basically it shifted from just trying to show the love of archery and the outdoors and hunting to now is trying to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and kind of keep people's day light with scripture and good memory verses and really just try to show the joy of the outdoors with your family and with friends. And I am married and I have three little kids with one on the way right now. So now that I have a 6, a 4, and a 2 year old, I have the joy of being able to spread archery to them as well. And so they each have their own bows and arrows, and we get to go out to the range and shoot together. And they, lose as many arrows as I do. So we spend a lot of time looking for arrows and practicing stalks. My oldest one is loves that more than anything. I have some 3D archery targets on the range, and so we stock up each time and we check the wind and we make sure we're at a good range, and then we take our shot, whatever that may be. So it's been an adventure, and it's been fun so far.
Man, that sounds like a really good program that you have going. So where in South Dakota are you?
So I am a little bit south of Sioux Falls. So I work in Sioux Falls, so I'm about 30 miles outside of town in a small town called Davis. I think the population currently is 78 people, but I live about 2 miles outside of Davis on a
Oh,
little acre that me and my wife have. So
well, there's no reason to be in all that congestion if you can be out in the country. You know, who
exactly.
knows? All 78 people may be on the road at the same time, and then you got a traffic jam,
Exactly. And you got neighbors and you got
right?
barking dogs and who needs that?
Who wants that? Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so that's the southeast corner then, huh?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So Sioux
I've
Falls
been through
is,
South Dakotas many times. Yeah. I was gonna
yeah.
say, excuse me for interrupting. I've been through South Dakota many times and love the state. Hunted there a few times. I think it's just beautiful. I don't know. I think my personal opinion, Ben, is that people that talk down about the Dakotas are people who've never been there. They're like, well, there's nothing there. It's just wide open plains. Well, you've never been there. You're just going on what somebody else might have said, right? But once you go there, you see it is a beautiful state.
Yeah. And honestly, so Sioux Falls and Rapid City are kind of the main hubs. And so in the eastern part of the state, it's a lot of egg fields, some shelter belts, a lot of flat land. But as soon as you cross the Mississippi, it is holy moly, it's like a whole nother planet. It's, you got rolling hills, you have the Black Hills when you get far enough out east, you have the Badlands, which is like a mini desert. I mean, it's like five or six different ecosystems all put into one state. And the amount of animals that you can hunt here is insane. I mean, big game alone, we have elk now, we have mountain goat, mountain lion, you have bighorn sheep, you have antelope, mule deer, whitetail, turkeys. You have all kinds of waterfowl. We're kind of a migration hub, depending on what side of the state you're in, what year. We have pheasants, we have quail, we have a bunch of upland birds besides those two. I mean, I call it the all in one. If you want to find a state that you can hunt a ton of different animals in, this is a great place to do it.
I had no idea you had mountain goats. Where
Yeah,
are
it
they?
takes a long time to draw a tag, but they're out in the hills.
Okay. Yeah, it takes a long time to draw a tag in a lot of states for some reason. It's really frustrating from that part. You know, uh, um, so wow, I knew you had bighorn sheep and I knew you had antelope and both deer. I did not know you had elk there. And well, I guess I did. I just right there on the Black Hills area, right against Wyoming is probably where the elk are. But there again, so let me ask a question. As a South Carolinian, all we don't have a lottery system except for alligators and special hunts on special properties. Okay. That's it. Every resident and non-resident can just buy a license and go hunting. Now we don't have the variety of animals that you have. Okay. We have deer and there is a short bear season and then we have turkeys and feral pigs, but you don't need a license for those. You can hunt those year round. Well, you got to have a license, but you can hunt them year round. There's no season and stuff like that. So, for the first Eastern guys, when we start looking at hunting in a Western state and we see that even the residents are in a lottery, it's kind of foreign for us, right? We don't understand that. Well, you're a resident there, you pay taxes there, you buy your license. Why do I have to draw a tag instead of just go to Walmart and buy a license and get to hunt? Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah, so I believe the lottery system we have here is really only for gun season. So as an archer or a bow hunter, I get four tags pretty much every year. There are some restrictions based off of like counties and deer populations and densities, and we've had a recent uptick of I think they call it blue tongue or EHD, which is essentially a disease that is transmitted by fleas or some kind of bug that gets on the deer and it makes them super dehydrated and then they end up drowning themselves or dying. And it's kind of hit different parts of South Dakota at different times. And so depending on stuff like that will depend on what counties you can actually hunt with. But for like archery, in a few weeks here, I'll go and I'll put in my East River, my West River tag. I'll put in for an antlerless tag and my antelope tag. And then 2 weeks later, I'll get it in the mail. No questions asked. For rifle, though, that's mainly based off population. So our game fishing parks does a really good job of trying to manage the herd, and so they basically determine per county how many rifle tags can be put out. And then we do have I call it an auto draw, but it's a landowner's draw. So if you have I want to say 150 or 160 acres of private land that you own, then you can put in for a landowner tag, which is pretty much you get the tag regardless. And so yeah, so part of the hard part of drawing an elk tag is actually like the population density, right? So the elk herd is a pretty new herd, and so like I drew an antlerless elk cow tag 2 or 3 years ago. I can't even put in for that tag for another 10 years. So
For
once
10 years.
so once you draw the elk tag, you're out of the drawing for 10 years. You can't even buy preference points or nothing because it's such a small herd and they're trying to manage it correctly. And so same with like mountain goat. Mountain goat, I'm pretty sure is a once in a lifetime tag. Bighorn sheep is the same way. But like bighorn sheep, the first archery tag drawn in I want to say like 20 or 30 years of the bighorn draw was like a world record bighorn sheep. The
I
dude shot
remember that. Yeah.
17 or 20 yards. And so we have really good opportunities if you can draw the tag for it. But if you're just looking for yearly hunts, I mean, I get a turkey tag every year, East River, West River, antlerless, and the antelope tag every year with my bow, no problem. Rifle tags, you probably need 2 to 3 points for. Um, but all in all, like it's a great place to hunt, especially if you're a waterfowler. If you are
Uh,
down,
Excuse me for interrupting, but when you say you get a turkey tag and an antlerless tag, is that a deer doe tag? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying? But you don't get a buck tag every year?
for archery, I do. So West River and East River archery tags are any deer is what they call it. So if you want to shoot a doe, you
Okay.
can. If you want to shoot a buck, you can. But the antlerless tag is that the antlers have to be
I can't remember the exact inches, but it's pretty much under the ears. So if there's a
Yeah,
button,
3 inch.
yeah,
Like 3 inches is typical. What it is here in South Carolina is 2 inches, but 3 inches or smaller tends to be what it is. There again, you can only take one deer, though, right?
no. So you can with your bow, I get 3 deer tags. So I
Oh,
get
okay.
a East River tag and a West River tag, and that is basically east of the river, west of the river. So I classify it as like a mule deer tag because we don't really have mule deers on the east side of the river, and you have a ton of whitetails, and you have a ton of whitetails on the west side of the river too. And so when I get my West River tag, it's typically I'm going after a mule deer, and that's about
Yeah.
it.
And for those of us who aren't familiar with South Dakota, West River, East River, that's kind of divides the state in half vertically, and that would be the Missouri River, I believe. Is that right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. So west of the Missouri River, you get a tag, and east of the Missouri River, then you get a tag. Um, and I'm gonna do a little quick sidebar here. Is also for those who may not know, in South Dakota, if you want to hunt one of the Indian reservations, that's a whole different animal,
That's a
right?
whole.
That's
I
a whole
don't.
nother animal. So you have to apply directly to that Indian reservation game and fish department and get their license. We're not going to dive into that. I'm just wanted to, for somebody who may be listening, thinking, well, what if I want to hunt the Pine Ridge or the Rosebud or whatever? Well, you have to contact them directly and get, because they run their own game and fish in a whole different way than what the state does. Now, back to this. All right, so you got whitetail, or East River, West River tag, and then what was the third deer tag you said you had?
So antlerless and then antelope.
Okay, okay, all right. And I know as a non-resident, because I've been trying to get an antelope in the Dakotas, and I saw that as a non-resident, archery tags are over the counter. But
So
if you want a gun tag, it's not.
yeah, so for non-resident, they actually just changed that too. I
Of
know.
course.
I know. I was just as upset. They actually just changed it to a drawing, and the drawing ends in June or July or something. But they kind of didn't tell anybody about it. So I actually had some buddies from Michigan that were going to come down, and I told them, I said, don't worry about it. It's an over-the-counter tag, so just figure out what weekend you can make it. Purchase your tag. Either just come down here and stop at a game fish and parks office, or buy it online and it'll mail to your house in 3 or 4 days. And so they called me and they're like, hey, there's no tag option for non-resident antelope. And I'm like, that can't be right. So after a quick Google search, they changed it to a draw. So you have to draw within, it's like from April to June. And if you don't put your tag in from there, then you don't get to come and hunt. So that was news to
Wow.
me as well. I
Wow.
did not know that.
All right. So take back what I just said, and thank you for correcting me on that. Uh, but let's talk about access opportunities, right? Where public land, BLM, what's it called? Where the landowners let you go on their property and hunt. What's that called? Walk-in access or something
Yeah,
like that?
walk-in area. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain all that.
So we have a ton of access here in South Dakota. We have walk-in areas, we have BLM, we have land management access, we have waterfowl production areas, and then there's one other that I cannot remember the name of it. But essentially, like walk-in area is landowners own the land, but they rent it per year to the government so that they can allow hunting to come onto it. Um, and then there's BLM, which is government owned land. Now, South Dakota is a little trickier because the Black Hills area is its own separate entity. And so is like the Badlands National Park. Those are national parks. And so you have to have a certain permit to be able to hunt on those. But as far as like antelope and mule deer, there's so much public land out west that, I mean, I go out there every year, and just about every year I find a new piece of public land that I didn't know the last year.
Yeah.
And so I have no problem dropping pins for people. Message me on Instagram and ask where some good antelope spots are, and I'll drop you pins of places that I've literally blown stalks on antelope. I've missed shots on antelope. I have no issues with that. Um, and so it's just, there's a lot of access. You just have to be kind of willing to put the work in. There's a ton of access as far as walking in or driving in. There's water holes on public land. But most of like the private land that you'll find out in the Black Hills and the West River area, they have arrangements with like outfitters and stuff. And so it's pretty hard to convince a public landowner to let you hunt because, like I had a probably an 80-inch antelope sitting behind a hay bale. So we just drove right into the property. We knocked on the door, and the guy comes out and he's like, "What's up?" So, hey, there's a big goat. Can I go try to shoot it? It's archery. It's like first weekend of the hunt. And he's like, "Oh, I have no problem with it, but the outfitter that pays me X amount of dollars every month to let his clients come hunt it probably would have an issue with it. So I can't let you do that." Okay, that makes sense. And so there's a lot of outfitter. I think there's 2 or 3 main outfitters out there, and they rent a lot of the private land. Um, and so it kind of prevents you from being able to go door knocking and get access that way. But the public land alone, honestly, is pretty good. It does get hunted quite a bit, so you kind of got to be on your game. You got to really manage the wind. You got to ensure that you're taking the best route possible. You have to kind of observe your surroundings before you just go tromping in. But for the most part, I mean, I've been hunting there for 7 years, and I've had 6 opportunities to shoot antelope. So I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
you
Okay.
can't complain about it.
And that's with archery too. So it means you have to make really good stalks. And you probably have a lot of failed stalks before you have a good one. And for anyone who's never hunted antelope, I've only done it once in Wyoming, and that was a rifle hunt. But they can see really well. As an understatement, I said it that way on purpose. And there's nothing to hide behind except the terrain. There is no trees, there's no bushes, there's nothing. Now it is rolling hills, so you can use the topography to your advantage. But I got to tip my hat to you archers who go out there in the wide open like that and try to get within 30 yards. I'm just going to throw out a number, 30, 40 yards of an animal that has 6x power vision, and can run like the wind, and they don't stop. When they run, they go. They may cover a mile and a half before they even turn around and look back. And they do that really quickly. And you think, I just walked 3/4 of a mile to get here, and then I just blew it, and I got to go back. Get in shape. Get in shape if you're going after antelope.
And I would also, I mean, topography, like I always say never rush it. Like that's kind of the big thing that I learned the hard way. It's like, oh, I see a goat, I'm just going to go out and do it. So what I've learned is when you spot one, you got to mark it, and then you got to kind of zoom in and figure out where drainage ditches, where the hills are at, because it's the most frustrating thing in the world. And this happened to me last year's. I think we did a 1.5 or 2 miles stalk. We went all the way around this ridge, and we're like, oh, this is going to be perfect. We're going to pop up right over this fence, and then we're going to hop the fence, and he'll just be right down. Like it'll be a 50, 60-yard shot from what we could see. It'll be easy, no problem. And we get up to the hill, and he's 130 yards away on top of another hill. And the only way to get to them is straight at them. Like there's absolutely no place to go. So we ended up sitting there for about an hour and a half, waiting for them to kind of meander down on the back side of the hill. So then we could sneak up on the other side of the hill to get on top of the hill to then hopefully get a shot.
Yeah.
And then a doe pops up out of nowhere and is like, oh, hi, I see you. Bye. And
They're all gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched antelope in a zone I couldn't hunt because I was deer hunting in this particular unit last year and wasn't seeing any deer. And I was watching a herd, and really nice antelope in that. That was in Wyoming again. And I'm like, how would you even attempt to stalk on that? Because of where they were, and I was like, I almost did it just for practice because I wasn't seeing any deer, and it was deer hunt just to see if I could. And I was like, but they're 3/4 of a mile away, right? And I stood up to stretch, and they all took off. I'm like, I'm not even moving towards them. I just stood up to stretch. I thought I was in the shadows too. I mean, that's how I got to tip my hat to you guys. But deer hunting is kind of the same way though, isn't it? Even though that they don't have the vision of the antelope.
So mule deer, in my opinion, are a little bit easier to hunt than antelope. They're more used to bedding down and thinking they're invisible. So like I've walked in on deer that I didn't even see, and they pop out at 20 yards.
Yeah.
So if I would have taken a little bit more time and maybe glassed the area a little better and seen them, I probably could have got a shot off at them. And then they typically don't run away for a mile. They'll jump up and run maybe 30, 40, 50 yards, stop, kind of look at you, try to figure out what you are. They might circle you a few times, and then they'll finally decide, oh, I don't want to be here anymore, bye.
Yeah.
But antelope, it's like they see one thing they don't like, they're gone. Like there's no question. They're not debating anything. They're not thinking about it. They are just deciding, nope, I can find grass somewhere else by, and they are gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I honestly, for antelope, I always like, don't be afraid to not try it. Like find them, pin them, come back to them later. Because there's been a lot of times where we've done that, and then 2 hours later we circle back and they're bedding, on the side of a hill with the best possible stock approach you could muster, because before they were standing 100 yards in the middle of nothing, and now they're bedded right up against a hill that you could easily walk into because the wind's in their face. And so it's a patience game, which is what archery has taught me the most, I think. But
Yeah. Well, archery in general is a patience game. I mean,
yeah,
even sitting in a deer stand for a whitetail here in the east, you can see them out there just taking their time, meandering and moving through the fields or through the woods, and you just got to wait while your heart's jumping out of your chest for just the perfect shot, right? Um, yeah, I want to transition a little bit into some of the deer hunting, but before we do, let's take a minute and pause for one of our sponsors. Hello, everyone. This portion of the show is being brought to you by High Mountain Seasonings. With the fall hunting season starting, one of my favorite ways to use my game meat is making jerky. And as long as I've been making jerky, I've found that the kits from High Mountain Seasoning are the easiest, best tasting, and complete sets on the market today. With 7 different flavors to choose from, the jerky kits from High Mountain Seasoning are your go-to choice for game meat jerky. And you can find out more at highmtnjerky.com. All right, since whitetail is the most popular game in North America, and y'all have tiny deer in South Dakota compared to South Carolina, that was sarcasm. 100-inch deer here is a really nice deer where I hunt, maybe 110, possibly 120. But out there, they get big quick, and I think there's a lot of science behind that, right? The fact that you can only take 1 or 2, and the fact that you have such good ag and the conditions that they live in. So, first of all, let's go ahead and eliminate this. Is baiting legal in South Dakota?
so the short answer is no. You
Okay.
cannot bait, but you can plant food plots.
Well, that's
So I we plant food plots a ton. I don't
okay.
think that's baiting at all, but no, you can't go put a salt block or a pile of corn out or anything like that.
Okay. So you can't dump corn, but you can grow corn,
Yep.
which is another debate we'll have at another time. I think food plots is just equal to baiting, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about placing food on the ground, corn, alfalfa, peas, whatever you want to, at a specific spot in order to kill an animal. So that is not legal in South Dakota.
Nope.
Okay. So talk to us about the whitetail hunting.
So honestly, that's kind of what I cut my teeth on. I think the first whitetail I shot was in 2006 or seven, somewhere in there, and that's kind of my bread and butter. I love that more than anything. So we have a little piece of property, about 90 acres, kind of out by Davis, and we plant food plots. We hang tree stands. We do all of the management tactics. We figure out what the deer are missing. The challenge comes with the egg. So the benefit of having 250 plus pound deer is also the hard part of having 250 plus pound deer, and that is we have thousands of acres of corn surrounding everywhere all the time. Until, I mean, we've been hunting into December with corn still in fields,
Oh, wow.
because it was a dry winter or a dry summer, or it was a wet summer and they couldn't get to it and they had to whatever. And so when we're talking about planting corn, it's like the corn that we plant is like December, because they have ample enough food everywhere else they go. So now what we're trying to figure out is what they want that they don't have year round. So we're looking into clover, we're looking into brassicas, we're looking at turnips, alfalfa, tons of stuff that we can get that they don't have access to year round. But I mean, we have 20 acres of our property is that we rent out for corn. So every year there's a cornfield right next to the food plots that we plant.
Yeah.
And so it's really just figuring out like travel patterns. It's figuring out what, like the rut. The rut is hugely beneficial. I know a lot of people don't like hunting the rut, but when you live in egg fields, that's the option. We have, you might not have a mature buck daylight until the rut.
I've never heard of anybody say that they don't like hunting the rut. I've
That is a
never heard that.
that is a new thing that I've heard, because these guys pattern these mature deer so well that they're like, yeah, they've been daylighting all summer. Why would they stop when hunting season starts? And so they have game pictures of these deer coming through every day at 10 o'clock in the morning. And they're like, when the rut hits, then their pattern changes. It turns crazy. And I'm like,
Huh.
honestly, we wouldn't see a mature deer if it wasn't for the rut,
Right.
because until it gets cold enough, they don't have to move anywhere. They sit in the middle
Right.
of their cornfield. They have all the moisture they need because the farmers water. And so there's little packets of moisture they can drink from. They have all the food they could possibly eat, and they have cover. They don't need to come out at all.
Not at
And
all.
when the rut hits, that's when we'll start doing mock scrapes here, probably a few weeks. We don't even really run game cameras anymore because it's a bunch of does. We get raccoons, we get does, we get, once in a while we'll get a young buck running through. But for the mature bucks, 5, 6, 7-year-old deer we're looking for, they might not step foot on our property till late October, beginning November.
Okay.
And we also have a huge piece of public land about a mile and a half from our property. So it's like they're getting hunted year round, or not year round, but I mean, they're getting hunted hard from opening weekend. And
Mm-hmm.
they really don't have a need to come out of the cornfields until they start chasing. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of our bread and butter. When the last week of October is when I start hitting tree stand hunting really, really hard. And then from there, it's doing a little grunting, doing a little rattling, and hopefully a big boy walks by.
When is most of the corn harvested around you?
So it honestly
Oh, no.
depends.
I mean,
Average year is October. Most of the
okay.
corn is by November 1st. A couple fields might be in, but for the most part, it's October, beginning November. This year, I'm hoping it'll be like beginning of October because it's been really, really wet and really dry at the same time. So we've had a lot of good rain, and then we've had really, really hot, sunny days. So our corn is already like 6.5 feet tall, which is,
Yeah.
the saying is like knee high by the 4th of July, and we've like doubled that this year.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it'll be an early harvest, but and you just kind of learn, like, whenever the farmers come out and start harvesting corn, you go sit in the stand,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're going to look for the CRP, they're going to look for the shelter belts, and they're going to look for another place that they can hang out until they have more cover. So from middle of October, we start seeing deer moving, and then the rut kind of kicks on after that. And
You say that's not unique to South Dakota, I don't think, because here in South Carolina, it's the same way. We run cameras and we see deer, these bachelor groups and stuff all summer, early season. But then once mid-October gets, you start seeing pictures of deer that you never saw before. And by Thanksgiving, you don't see them anymore either, because the bucks are roaming like crazy. They're roaming looking for receptive does. And that's why people like the rut, is because you're going to see deer you've never seen before. And for the guys that are patterning deer and like, well, now they disappear. Yeah, they came to my land. Thank you. Right. And the statistics on how far a buck will roam during the rut, some of them go 5-10 miles every year. There's some great GPS data out there, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name who did it, or who has done it the most. But they put collars on bucks and they monitor them year round with the GPS plotter, and they see that this buck or these bucks have a summer core area, they have a rut core area, and a late winter core area, and then it repeats itself as long as they survive. Continues to repeat itself, and they may be miles and miles apart from each other. Who knows why they do that, right? But they do. They have a core area here in the summer, and then boom, they get up overnight. Will travel 5, 6, 7, 10 miles, 15 miles to their rut zone, and then their late winter feeding zone, and they'll spend the entire winter there. And then come spring, once their antlers drop, they go right back to where they were last summer. If you want to pattern them, that's the way to pattern them. Catch them, put a GPS collar on them, and know where they are.
I like that idea. I think
I
it
like
might be
that
frowned
idea.
upon, possibly illegal, but I'm not a judge.
Possibly illegal. It could be illegal. Yeah. Yeah. Probably is. With all the other technology hitting the hunting world, that's coming. I'm assuming we're just going to start catching buck fawns and put collars on them and see where they go. Don't do that. I'm not promoting that. Christian Outdoors does not promote hunting illegally. There's my.
Got to throw the PSA in.
I gotta throw that in there. We are not promoting unethical, illegal hunting. whatsoever. Okay. So 5, 6, 7-year-old bucks in that climate that they live in. That's one of the things about the Dakotas is y'all have extremely hot summers and extremely cold winters, right?
Yep.
And that's
So
why you have so few people.
I mean, I like it that way. I prefer to keep it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but no, like you said, like this last week we had 95, 100-degree temps. Come November, December, we'll get down to negative 10, 15. 2 years ago, we had negative 25 for about 2 weeks straight. So, I mean, and that's without wind chill. When you throw wind chill in, I mean, there'll be months where we might be at single digits or negatives because
Yeah.
our average wind is 15 to 20 miles an hour. So it's
Yeah.
like when you get to the low temps, I mean, 15-mile-an-hour wind, that stinks. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no other way
Yeah.
to say it.
That's the thing about the plains, though. The wind blows all the time.
All the time,
The
nonstop.
wind blows all the time. You just got to get used to it. That's just the way it is. The wind blows all the time. And it's been so hot and humid here. I had to use 4-wheel drive to go to church yesterday because the humidity was so hot. Just to push through it,
Uh-huh.
it was that bad. We've had those triple digits for quite a while, which is unusual for us to have triple digits for that long of a period of time. But I think the whole country's been covered in that. The whole country has been covered in that for some odd reason. But anyway, well, before we get to the next part of the show here, Ben, let's go ahead and take another break and get another word from our sponsors. And then I want to hear more about your faith story and why you are using Dak Horizons as a way to push the gospel. We're fortunate here at Christian Outdoors to have quality companies supporting our mission. And Mueller Optics is a perfect example of this. Since 2007, Mueller Optics has had one mission to bring the passion of hunting and shooting to everyone. Mueller Optics' aim is to offer top-tier rifle scopes that won't break your budget, making quality optics more attainable for enthusiasts like us. I started using Mueller Optics scopes last season. Not only was I impressed with the cost of these scopes, but the quality of the glass and the ease of operation was as good or better than other brands costing 3, 4, 5 times as much as the Mueller Optics scopes do. Whether you're building the rifle for the hunt of a lifetime, an ultimate whitetail setup, or trying to make your 22 perfect for small game hunting and plinking, Mueller Optics has a scope for you that will outperform any other scope in its price point. And to further help Christian Outdoors, if you use promo code COP for Christian Outdoor Podcast, COP35 at checkout, you will save 35% on your purchase. Just go to MuellerOptics.com to find out more. So, Ben, tell me about your faith story. Did you grow up going to church as a young person and raised in a Christian home, or how did all that come about?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up going to church from as far as I can remember. My parents were very adamant that if you were good enough to if you were well enough to do anything, it was to go to church. So we grew up in church from as long as I can remember. We had Wednesday night groups, we had youth groups, we had church camps that we went to, we had VBS in the summer that we went to, all up until I graduated high school. I mean, I went to a church camp that we have here in the summer for a week every year from fourth grade till I graduated high school, and then when I got out of high school, I actually got invited back as a counselor for 1 year, so I could go back, and I had my own cabin of boys. And um, the church I grew up in is a Presbyterian church, and so,
Okay.
we'd have button ups and khakis that we wore every day, and ties on special occasions, and all that fun stuff. And then my senior year, we had a little bit of a scandal, which kind of rocked our church a little bit. Well, our youth pastor was politely
Just say scandal at the church.
yeah, scandal at church. And so the youth pastor involved, we had been involved with for like 15 years. And so it kind of rocked our senior group very, very much. And it kind of made us a lot stronger. It kind of made us dig into what the Bible says rather than what he was saying. And so my senior year, I started going to church 4 or 5 times a week. We would have a Monday night Bible study, and then we'd have a men's group on Tuesday, and then we'd have Sunday or Wednesday night group, and then we'd have another Thursday night Bible study, and then Sunday, and then after church on Sunday, we had another Bible study. And it really made me dive into the Bible more. And then I graduated high school and went to college, and things found me that had not been I had not experienced prior. I got with a different group of friends. I made some poor decisions while I was going to college, and I kind of fell away from the church. So I was fresh out of college. I have an associate's degree in criminal justice, and so I thought, hey, I'm going to go work at the state penitentiary that we have here. So I became a prison guard, and while I was being a prison guard, I worked with a lot of guys who served in the military in one capacity or another, National Guard or active duty or Marines or whatever the case may be. And I kind of started talking to him about it. I said, I'm an able-bodied man. I lost about 150 pounds over the last 2 years. I'm in the best shape of my life. I think I'm going to join the military. And every one of them said, do not join National Guard, go active duty. And then when you're done with your contract, if you want to stay in, come back and join the National Guard then. But go and experience the military. Go see what the military has to offer and get out of this town. Go enjoy whatever duty station you get to. And then when you come back, you'll be more well-rounded. So that was my plan. So I thought about it for a long time, and I finally decided, hey, I should probably talk to the guy who's got a better plan for my life than mine. So one morning I woke up.
That's a novel idea, isn't it?
I know, right? I didn't think about it until then. So one morning I woke up and I prayed about it, and I opened my Bible to Joshua 1:9 and said, do not be afraid, take courage, for I am with you wherever you go. And I went, go. That's what I took from that. So I got up, got dressed, went to the recruiter's office, signed up for infantry in the Army for 3.5, 4-year contract with options to extend. And about a month later, I shipped out to Fort Benning, Georgia. Did my basic training. It's called OSIT, One Station Unit Training. So I was about 14 weeks at Fort Benning, Georgia. And then I got orders to go to Fort Hood. Went to Fort Hood in March of 2014. We deployed shortly after that to Africa on a peacekeeping mission where I spent about 10 months there.
And the whole continent or one particular place?
It was Egypt. So it was the Sinai Peninsula. So basically the mission was we were a peacekeepers with 13 other countries to monitor the war between Egypt and Israel, which I didn't know there was even a conflict there. But apparently it goes back 30-some years, and basically we had to memorize all these different military vehicles that might be used, and then we had to report weekly on anything that we saw. Yeah. So we were there for 10 months, I think. Came back, decided the military wasn't for me. I missed home too much. I wanted to come back and start, growing in whatever career I was going to dive into. So I came back, and while I was in the military, I developed a few habits which were not beneficial to my life. Drinking was the main one. Is kind of a big party, to be honest with you. And so, Friday nights you're drinking, Saturdays you're drinking, and it turned into kind of an everyday thing. So when I got out of the military, that didn't change. I just kind of kept drinking. And so I got a job at a grocery store, Hy-Vee, which is kind of a Midwestern thing. I don't know if you have that out in South Carolina. But I started working at a grocery store, Hy-Vee. Started working my way up. I met my wife. We dated for a year and got married on our year anniversary. About a year after that, almost to the date, we had our first kid. I was working my way up at Hy-Vee, and we kind of sat down and we're like, we want to make sure that we raise our child in a Christian, God-fearing home. And that's not the way we were living. And so we kind of pondered on it. We kind of drug our feet on it. It was kind of this is a lot of work. I don't know if we want to do this. And after our second kid, that's when we were like, hey, this isn't working. Like, I'm working 60, 70 hours a week. I'm almost never home. When I am home, I'm usually drinking. Like, something's got to give. So I decided to look for a different job. I got a job with the state, working with disabled veterans. Then we started going to church regularly because I had better hours. I stopped drinking completely. And then my wife did too. She was never a big drinker, but we both decided that this wasn't something that we needed in our life. And then after about 2 years at the state, I left for another opportunity to work for a nonprofit, which is my current job. I work for Volunteers of America Dakotas, and I run their homeless veterans program. And we got super involved in our church to the point where she's like the kids ministry leader, and I'm a youth pastor / I help with kind of the production side of things, some of the marketing and some of the video stuff. But it was kind of a slow progression. I don't know if I have a moment in time where Jesus like hit me in the face and was like, hey man, what's your deal? It was this slow progression of like, is this the man you want your kids to see? Is this the man you want to be in 5 years from now? Is this how you want to be representing not only yourself, but the God that you claim to love?
Mm-hmm.
And so it turned from, we started reading our Bibles every day. We have family Bible time is what I'll call it, to where everybody sits down and we read our Bible, and my wife homeschools all three of our kids. And so we have a very Christian based homeschool. And um, I'm very blessed to have a family that is very involved in church and God fearing people, not just church goers, but
Mm-hmm.
Jesus followers. And so that's kind of when, probably about 2 years ago, is kind of when I started making changes on my profiles and on my Instagram and on my handles, because I realized that, yeah, you can love Jesus, but if you're not living like you love Jesus, are you really loving Jesus? And so that's kind of when things changed for my platforms. That's when I started posting scripture, and that's when I took secular music off, and I don't listen to that stuff either. And I'm spending time in my Bible every day with the Lord, and it's turned into a, not necessarily trying to promote anything, but it's just for me. It's time that I can spend with God that is making me a better man. It manages the stress that I have in my life. It helps me be a better employee. It helps me be a better employer to the people that are under me. And it's just really kind of cleared some of the noise out in my head, which, for those that have served in the military, probably understand what I'm talking about. But when you leave, regardless of the status that you had, regardless of how many deployments you went on or your MOS or anything like that, when you leave, there's a part of you that doesn't, right? So you're leaving not only the job that you had for however many years, you're leaving not only, the place that you're familiar with for how many years, you're leaving a culture, you're leaving a family, you're leaving brothers and sisters that you've grown to love over the course of however long you're there. And so that was kind of my issue when I got out. I got super depressed and anxious because, I used to be able to go knock on 2 or 3 doors and I'd have 15 buddies hanging out, and we would, hang out. And that went from having 15 buddies at the knock of my hand to, I get back and all my friends moved on with their lives. They're all very successful in their careers. They're graduating college and getting jobs, and so it was just like this depression I fell into of, I went from having family next door to barely seeing anybody. And it just was this hole that I kept digging. And it wasn't until I decided to break open my Bible and get back to the one who created me that I started digging out of that. And I can't really take credit for it. It wasn't me. If it was my decision, I'd probably still be in that hole because it was a lot easier. But the Lord kind of showed a lot of stuff to me on how to be a man and how to be a father and how to be a good husband even, and how to be a leader in not only church, but in life, and how to put your best foot forward. And it's just kind of been a journey. Like I said, there's not one single time that I can be like, oh, yep, this is when I decided, because I had all the knowledge leading up to the decisions I made. I kind of refer to myself as the prodigal son because, I had all the knowledge that I needed. I just decided to step away from it and go live life the way I wanted to then come back and realize that how I wanted to live was this way the whole time. I just didn't realize it until I was almost too far gone.
Well, you're never too far. That's the good news, right?
That's the beautiful.
You're never too far. There's never, you're never so far away that you can't come home. And I want the listener to hear that. I'm going to say it again. You're never so far away you can't come home. And as I like to tell people, you are not defined by your worst decisions. We've all made bonehead decisions, right? But that does not define us. It just says, well, that was a bump. That was a bad decision. Own it, acknowledge it, learn from it, and move on. Right. And for men, Ben, you'll, I think, agree with this. It's really hard for us to forgive ourselves when we make bonehead decisions, and when we do things that we know we shouldn't do, but we're going to do them anyway. And then we're like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. And it's really hard for us to forgive ourselves. But the good news is the God that created us does forgive us. And if he can forgive us, then we should forgive ourselves. Right. That's just a little point I wanted to make based on what you were saying. Are you currently attending a Presbyterian church again, or where are you attending now?
No. So we are, honestly, I don't even know what kind of church it is. I would guess it's a non-denominational church.
You don't even know what kind of church. Is it Christian?
It's Christian, 100%.
Okay, good. Threw me a curveball there, buddy.
Yeah, ooh, this is about to take a dark turn, huh? No,
And thank you for joining me. Yeah.
it's called C6, and the pastor is I would almost categorize him as a prophet. I mean, he is truly listening to what God and the Holy Spirit are telling him to do. He is a very faith-based man. He's a very Christ-following man, and he started this church 5 years ago now. And we were meeting in a hotel lobby for a little while, and then we switched to a kind of a community center. And this last year, we actually finally just got a building. But the whole thing, now that I'm in my Bible more than I'm on, you know, other people's words, the thing I find myself doing the most is almost carefully listening so I can criticize afterwards. So he'll get up for his 45-minute sermon and he'll preach on whatever topic he's preaching on. And I'll be sitting there going, okay, where do you get the information for that? And just about every single time I'm questioning that, he'll say, you want to know where I found that at? And he'll list off 3 or 4 different Bible verses and he'll say, this is that. And this is the context behind that. And this is why I decided this is this. And so he's very scripturally based, which is hugely important in today's church, where you have people going up there and taking one verse and then dissecting it for 6 hours based off their own theology and their own ideas and their own whatever they want to put into it and coming up with, whatever they think it means.
Yeah.
And it's just the theology we need is in the Bible. And when we decide to make our own theology outside of the Bible is where we, the wide path.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the criteria for me is I just want a preacher who's going to preach the word. And found that.
I want to emphasize that if you're a listener and you are searching for a church or you haven't been in a long time, don't be hesitant to try more than one. That's the first thing I want to say. Just because this church isn't meeting your need doesn't mean that the one down the street won't meet your need. But the thing that you have to look for is it biblically based? Are they preaching the word of God? It's and I've said this a lot on this show, but I think I need to say it again for the new listener, is that it's not about the show. It's about the message, right? And I've said this too, is that it's pretty easy as a former pastor. It's pretty easy to make a church fat. It's hard to make it healthy. If I want to grow a church, put on a better show than the guys down the street. That's all I got to do. Just put on a better show. Go hire good worship people. Go hire great singers. Go hire great musicians, and decorate your church in a funky kind of way. And you're going to get seekers who are like, well, this is different. And you're going to make that church fat, really fat. But as we know, fat's not healthy. Fat is unhealthy, right? If you want it to grow, you preach the word of God in season, out of season. And you let, as I like to say, let the word say for itself what my words can't. Because the word, capital W, the word, as John says, in the beginning was the word. The words are more important and better than my words about it. Right? Let the text speak for itself. It's our jobs as preachers. If you're listening to this preacher, it's our jobs as preacher not to add to the word, but to explain the word. Right? We don't need to add to it. It's already there. Just explain it. That's all you got to do. Right? And don't cherry pick the gospel. Don't cherry pick. Well, it says this in Leviticus 19. Okay, well, it does. Right? And it says this in 1 Corinthians 12. Well, it does. But what's the context? Why did Paul write it that way? What was Paul facing when he wrote Corinthians? What was the church at Corinth going through when he wrote this? Why did he address this in this way? As my seminary professor said, don't take a first century document, I'm pointing at the camera, and impose it on a 21st century culture. All right. I said that backwards. Don't take a 21st century culture and try to understand a first century document from a 21st century mindset. Take the first century document and say, what does this mean for us today? Okay. We've got to be very careful about that we let the Bible speak for itself.
And I think the other important thing to notice is you have to do your own digging. Mm-hmm. If the only time that you're hearing the word of God is when you're sitting in church and someone's talking from a pulpit, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to be able to point out a false teacher or incorrect terminology or the context being incorrect if you're only hearing it from that one source.
Right.
The best investment I've ever made in my Christian walk was reading the Bible for myself.
Well
Um,
said.
because when the pastor gets up there and he starts talking, and he might misquote something to where you can say, oh, that doesn't sound like it was from this. I think it was from this instead. And if you have a good pastor, he'll say, you're right, I'm sorry, I misquoted, and he'll correct himself and it'll be fine. But if you're not studying yourself, if you're not reading yourself, the context will never make sense to you. It
Mm-mm.
will never make sense to you when Paul is writing to anybody, because you're not looking at it from who is Paul writing to. Who is he writing to when he's writing Corinthians? What is he explaining? Who is he writing to when he's writing Ephesians? What is he trying to
Right.
get across?
Right.
And so when you're not looking at it from the whole context of 30 AD or 70 AD, you're
Right.
looking from right now, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But
No.
when you start digging in and reading the Old Testament, and you start finding out the customs, and you start finding out, oh, guess what? Child sacrifice is in the Bible, all across the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
And
I
so
know.
it's like, oh, that's not something, if you're not reading the Old Testament, if you're not reading all of, First and Second Samuel, if you're not reading what the judges went through, if you're not reading even in Daniel, when he's talking about all the things that are to come and he's prophesying, there's things going on behind the scenes that you're going, that sounds awfully familiar to something that's going on right now that half of the country thinks is a good idea that government should be funding. And you're going, oh, child sacrifice? Oh, they're just trying to do it before they're out of the womb. It's that simple. And so then your eyes kind of start opening, and you're going, hey, some
Yeah.
of these culturally normal things that nowadays in America people don't even bat their eyes over. Well, it's not new. Nothing new is
No.
under the sun, right? It's all
Right.
things that are circling back from days of old when God was upset enough that was going on that he, Sodom and Gomorrah, the flood. How many times did he leave the Israelites because they fell into sin and he didn't want to put up with them anymore? And,
Right.
how many prophets had to not beg him, but please don't destroy this nation. We know they're stupid. Let's just keep trying to teach them.
Right.
And so when you start finding that out and you start digging into that yourself, you kind of realize, oh, this is nothing new. This
Right.
is all things that have happened before. We are just in a time of our culture shifting away from the Lord and shifting towards the world.
Yes. Yes. Very well said. Very well said. And there again, it's Ecclesiastes. There's nothing new under the sun, and there's not. And several great writers throughout time have said that the book of Ecclesiastes is the greatest work ever penned by man. We know it was inspired by God, but read Ecclesiastes. There's good stuff in there, and not just chapter 3, where there's nothing new under the sun, and there's a time to live, a time to die. That's good stuff, but there's a lot more to it than that. And one of the things that the author says, who was identified as the preacher in Ecclesiastes, is that we toil and toil and toil. We work and work and work for what? It's all meaningless. It's all meaningless because one day, I'm paraphrasing here, one day we're going to die, and we're going to go face to face with Jesus, and we have to account for the decisions that we made. And that's where the grace of God and the mercy and the righteousness is so important and so powerful, because he is gracious to forgive us of all of our sin if we just ask him. Very good stuff there. And again, I want to be cautious to the listener. When you talk about reading, find a version of the Bible that you can understand. Right. That's one of my professors at seminary put it this way. He said, the best version of the Bible is the one that leads you to a relationship with Christ. This portion of Christian Outdoors Podcast is brought to you by Citrus Safe Grill Cleaners. Citrus Safe Cleaners, from the field to the grill. There's a connection between America's hunters and a safe meal they can share with their family and friends. All the time and energy we spend in the field should not be ruined by a dirty or unsafe grill. Citrus Safe Cleaners, which is available at leading retailers nationwide and Amazon, they developed a cleaner that cleans your grill and avoids the dangers of wire grill brushes. Whether it's baked on or fresh, just a few sprays of Citrus Safe Cleaners and the grime is gone. CitraSafe is made in the USA by Bryson Industrial Products, the makers of Shield Hunt scent control products and other national chemical brands. To find out more and to get some of the outstanding grill accessories, go to CitraSafe.com. That's the best one. If you're a King James guy and you can understand that and that leads your relationship with Christ, by all means, read the King James. But if you're an English Standard Version or an NIV and you can understand it and lead you into a relationship with Christ, don't be so stuck on one version that's hard to understand. Pick up another one. You can always read more than one, but if you're very new to the scripture, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say if you're very new to reading the Bible, the King James is the most difficult to understand. It's written on a 14th grade reading level. Most Americans can only read on a 7th grade reading level. NIV is written on a 7th grade reading level. The ESV is written on a 6th grade reading level. It's easier to understand, and they're also accurate. Okay, so pick up one, read it. If you don't understand what it's saying, ask your pastor or get a different translation. Right? If you need one, contact me at pete@christianoutdoors.org. I'll send you one. All right? Because you need to read the scriptures every day. And life's going to get busy and you're going to miss a day here. You're going to miss a day there. That's okay. Don't beat yourself up. As soon as you can, pick it up and read again. And I want to say this too to the new person who may be getting into scripture the first time. They're like, where do I start? And so many people, Ben, that I've talked to, so I started at Genesis, and when I got to Leviticus, I was like, I'm done. Who's not? Leviticus was written for insomnia. That's what it was written for. Okay, it's really hard to understand. So I'm going to say this: if you're picking up the Bible the first time in a long time, start with the Gospel of John. Start with the Gospel of John. Read the Gospel of John, because John doesn't care about chronology. He cares about this is who Jesus is. Read the Gospel of John. And then I'm going to tell you to go read the book of James. And then I'm going to tell you to come back and start back over at Matthew and read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and then John again. Get that first. Understand who Jesus is and why God sent Jesus for you. That is where you start, in Pete's opinion. And I think a lot of other pastors I've talked to agree with that. Go John, James, then Matthew, and then go back through.
Yep, I 100%. I advise people to start in the New Testament, because the New Testament is the meat, right? That's what you need. That's where the Holy Spirit's going to say, this guy loves you so much, he died for your sins.
Right.
The New Testament is good for context. That's where you're going to go back, and I want to learn more of the character of God and who I'm dealing with. And so, honestly, I tell a lot of people to start in Romans, because there's so much encouragement in Romans that it will take you out of that, the guilt.
Yeah.
Guilt is the devil's best weapon he has against man, because how can you look forward when he's constantly pulling you back? And 90% of the stuff he doesn't even have to touch. It's one little, you remember when you did that? And all of a sudden you're spiraling backwards and you're thinking of the things that you've done. And so Romans does a great job of kind of saying, hey, yeah, you're horrible. You're a sinner. You deserve death. But the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of life is through Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. And that is the thing that he wants us to forget the most is, sure, you've lived a bonehead life. I can attest to that 100%. But Jesus doesn't care about that as long as you're walking with him. As long as you keep your eyes on him, the rest of that is washed white as snow. You don't have to worry. It is.
Very well said. Very well said. A good place to wrap this up, too. Ben Klusmann of Dak Horizons. Ben, tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. My handles are all Dak Horizon. Like I said, I try to put out fun archery content, family-friendly archery content, and try to give you some tips and tricks on how to be a better archer, how to get your kids involved, how to maybe get your wife involved. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us here on Christian Outdoors, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.